Hello, everyone. I'm Cerathel Burgess-Burnett, Deputy Commissioner here at Children's Services Division at Department of Family and Support Services. I'm here today wanting to introduce you to a very, very important topic, and that is communication. So I'm going to go through a webinar today. What it's going to do for you is specifically talk about how we communicate with you and also set the tone for some of what we're asking you to do as delegates and partners in this great work around Chicago. So again, I'm just going to go ahead and talk you through this webinar. What we will be doing following up is a lot more webinars and a lot more communication. So just know this is just the start. So let's get started with this. So what I want to do today, again, I'm Cerathel Burgess-Burnett. I'm your Deputy Commissioner, Children's Services Division here at Department of Family and Support Services. What I want today is walk you through some very high-level but key points about communication. So the webinar really is designed to introduce you to how Chicago Early Learning Community partners will be engaged in various communication systems directly with the Children's Services Division. That's what we're going to talk about today. Communications, as you know, is timely and accurate communication, and the value of it and why it's so important is that it really is a key element in maintaining your programs, engaging your parents and families, and in ensuring that you have a system, a management system that supports your program quality. One of the things we're going to talk through just a little bit today is a communications wheel. The wheel that you see in front of you actually is produced by Office of Head Start. It's one of the leadership and governance tools. If you look at this wheel, what you find on it, on the outside, it says leadership and governance. So what it looks like is it's telling us that we need to think through how we're leading our organizations and also how we govern them. As we come in to the next innermost ring, it's program management planning oversight system. The one that I want to draw you to today is communication. But what I want you to do is look at this system and think directly and look directly at the center, because this, again, is all about quality child and family outcomes. So as we talk about communications today, let that be your focal point. Talking through communications, the quality child and family outcomes. So each Chicago Early Learning Delegate Agency should have its own documented communication system. We want you to have already set up your system on how you're going to include all of your relevant stakeholders. And so when you're thinking about stakeholders, think about your parents and your families, your parent committees, your parent policy committees if you're federally funded, your board members. How do you communicate with your community partners? You are vested entities in communities. How do you communicate with them? How do they know who you are and what you do? Your agency staff, and that's across all your sites and all your programs and all of your program models that you offer. Your partner agencies, but additionally, how do you communicate with us? So we want to talk through a lot of those elements as we do this today. There's specific guidelines that require communications, and so two of those, or three that we're going to point to today, is our Chicago Early Learning Standards 2.0. And if you look directly in that document to the reference that's right here, 2.2 IIF, page 36, you're going to find on those pages information about communications, what we've set up for you as your requirement for communications as a funded agency under us. The Head Start Performance Standards, there's two parts, 1301 and 1302. In both of those, it talks about the requirement for communication, and in some cases, references back to the wheel that I just showed you. Then, of course, because we have Early Childhood Block Grant dollars, is the Illinois Early Learning Standards and the Illinois State Board of Ed Administrative Rules and Implementation Manual. These are documents that you as leaders in these organizations need to have and reference often. That's why we're putting those up there for you today. Communications, again, how do we, VFSS, communicate with you, our delegate agencies, and then our internal and external stakeholders? We do this through a variety of methods. Some of those webinars here for you today is a webinar that talks specifically about communications. After we complete webinars, We actually put them up on our YouTube channel. The link for our YouTube channel is right here for you, www.youtube.com/user/DFSS Chicago. What you will find at that channel are webinars that we've posted over time. There's trainings, there's updates. All of those are there for you. You can go back in at any time and review the webinars that we posted for you. That's one of our methods of communication. It's information sharing, training. Who is it guided for, both the internal and external stakeholders, and how do you learn about our webinars? We send out CSV updates weekly and sometimes more often than that. But when you're looking in those CSV updates, please make sure that you read all the way through them. There may be links in there for webinars and other trainings. We want to make sure that you're capturing that. Another way is through our CSV updates that I just talked about. What is it? It's about our being able to share information with you. We usually send these out on Wednesdays, but also as needed. Sometimes we will send out one on a Wednesday. We may have information that needs to go out. We may need to do another one on Friday. That's why we're asking you to always open up your emails and see what's in there. Right now we're saying frequency is weekly, but again, I want to acknowledge sometimes they're as needed. There are urgent pieces of information we need to get out. Sometimes we have to do them more frequent than that. And who's the audience? Again, is our internal and external partners. And who are we talking about? We're definitely talking about you. The person who you can always sign up with for our CSV updates, if you're not in there, if you're not getting them, is Mara Martinez, because she's the one who makes sure that all of our delegates, partners, and others are on the links and are getting the information regarding our CSV updates. Another method, of course, is email. I know, email, inundated with it every day. We all are, but we also need you to know that we are communicating with you via email. Through your email chain, you're going to get our CSV update, for example. Again, it's a method for us to share information. We're also using it for planning, maybe inquiry. Maybe we're needing to get information from you. We're reaching out to you through email, asking you for some specific information. And again, specific internal, external stakeholders. But again, I just want to make sure that you know that we do communicate via email. So the key point here is making sure that the email addresses that we have for you and key individuals at your organization, that we have correct information. We know that there's been some changes at delegates and at partner sites as far as staff. If there has been, in your case, please make sure that you update us and give us those updated email addresses. We are always working on training, COPA training, and giving you a COPA training calendar. And so training announcements and information on enrolling in our various trainings will come out to you through two different ways. We're going to alert you through COPA, and also, again, as I mentioned, our CSV updates. Who's the audience? It's all of our agencies. It's all of our agencies and partners. It's everybody who's funded through DFSS. But also just know that our CSV staff are also getting the same information, making sure that they're kept up to date with various pieces of information, so we're all in the same communication loop all at the same time. We have a website, DFSS website here. You can see there's the link for it. You can go onto that website. This is the one that's embedded in chicago.gov. Our site, our DFSS Department, Children's Services Division, has its own page that's on the city website. We want to make sure that you know that you can go there and get general information. Again, it's going to update different documents, make sure that you're using all the varying tools, and that's what we're doing today, making sure you understand how to get to us and how to get information from us. So our website, again, is available for you. Additionally, Children's Services Division, more specifically, has a website. Here's the link for that. We post documents here. We put general information there. We, again, alert you in CSV update. We talk about meetings. At meetings, we tell you about it, but we want to make sure that you're using both of these. And I know, two different websites, but right now that's how we're communicating with you. Again, when we're posting documents, we're putting them up on this specific website. So if you're looking for a document, this is one of the first places we'd ask you to go. If you can't find it there, then you can communicate with us and we can help you get to it. Hosting meetings. We are hosting our EDPD, or Executive Director, Program Director, stakeholder meeting. What do we mean by that? Leadership of organizations, and then more specifically, content area staff. Apologize. Those meetings, again, are hosted monthly. What we do in those meetings, we give you updates. What we're going to be doing in 2020 is we're going to be doing a lot more engagement with you and changing how we engage with you. We'll be doing a lot more training and information gathering at those meetings. And so what we want to do is make sure you're keeping up with it and that you're putting them on your calendar and making sure that you're there and key staff are present at those meetings. Want to make sure that you understand our next meeting is the fourth Thursday in January of 2020, and it's going to be held on the 23rd at the King Community Center. Just want to change that a little bit. In the blurb here, it says third Thursday. This month, because there's 5, it's actually happening on the 4th Thursday. Want to make sure you have the exact date. We have subcommittee meetings, different specific content area, collaborative meetings. So for example, we've got an education committee. What we do is we want to make sure we have opportunities to have specific content area meetings where we can dive deep into content-specific information. Those are quarterly meetings, and they're also out in the dates and information on those, again, are done in our CSB update, and also you can find information on COPA. Who needs to attend? It says it here, but we want to make sure that you are aware that content area staff at CSB, but at your area, who's your content area support staff? We also have our support service contractors and consultants there where they're giving specific information. Again, these are quarterly meetings. You can find them at our CSB update and again on COPA. What we're doing also is meeting with our delegates and our partners at varying times where we're sitting down with you and talking more specifically about the work that you're doing. So these are called agency roundtables and staffings. And what it says here, late spring and ad hoc or as necessary. Who do we want at these meetings? We want your agency staff, your key staff. For example, if we're sitting down and we're talking about PIR information, our program information report crosses across all the work that individual agencies are doing. Talk about health, talk about personnel or HR, talking about enrollment, all of those varying pieces, and all of those kinds of things are talked about at our roundtables and our staffings. And so we want to, again, talk about the fact that how you will be notified, CSB update, but more specifically, our teams are going to get in touch with you with an email so that they can confirm dates, times, and locations so that you know exactly where and when you need to be there. Conferences. We just held what we believe was a very successful conference in November. And there will be various opportunities again as we go forward to do more of those. We're looking at perhaps doing another in the spring. These are more intensive. They're workshop-based. And what we are also looking at, and I just want to put this out there for people, when we're doing these kinds of conferences and trainings, we want you to think about these as train the trainer. In other words, you're going to send key staff. We know you can't send your entire organization. But when you're sending your key staff, what we want them to be able to do is come back and then train other staff at your organization. So when you're thinking conferences and training, that's how we want you to think about identifying your staff to say who's going to be the person that's going to represent there. Many of our different conferences and trainings will specify who we'd like there. For example, agency staff. Our DFS staff will be there. There are times that we'll be asking for your board members, parents, parent committee members, but we'll say what we want when we need it and give you some ideas on what and who the key staff are. Again, you'll be alerted on these via the CSB update, and you'll also get emails regarding conferences and trainings and or workshops. Of course, there will also be other meetings, and these vary as needed. When we need to have you in the room, for example, we do various meetings on specific topics, and we will be doing this as we go forward. We have meetings with specific agencies on topics. We may have specific community partners come in. We may have our contractors or support service contractors come in because we want groups of them in the same room. So based on what our needs are and what your needs are, again, as ad hoc when we need them. But again, you can find out about these varying meetings through the CSB update and also through our email system. Surveys. We do send surveys out. Sometimes you're going to get a survey monkey. Again, this is a method for us to collect data because we use data for planning. We want to make sure that we touch base with our organizations and agencies to get information from you so that we're using real live data as we're making planning decisions going forward. The audience for these would be agency staff, but when we're sending out a survey, on the ground in your organization, you know who the best individual would be to respond to that survey because they're the person who has your information or is accessing that information. If it's on enrollment, who are your staff that handles enrollment for you? They would be or might be the individuals you would select to respond to an enrollment survey. Just want to make sure again that you will get those information on those through our CSB update and again possibility through emails. But again, the CSB update comes to you through emails, but please read all the way through when you receive them so that you can see what the next scheduled event, training, or activity is. It's going to be listed there for you so that you can engage and be communicated with us and we can communicate with you. Other written communication, other ways that we communicate with you is through newsletters. We send out reports, briefs, policy memos, etc., keeping you up to date. When things change, for example, if we're looking at a policy or a procedure that we've been doing, and I'm just going to go back to September, for example, we had in our Chicago Early Learning Standard, we talked about reporting. We changed the wording in there to say we wanted you to report to us immediately. It came out as a new policy memo stating that we wanted all of our delegates and partners to report immediately when there were incidents at sites. So I'm only using that as an example, but I want to make sure that you understand varying methods are used here from us to you to communicate when there's changes to keep you updated so you always have key information. So as you're activating different systems and procedures in your organization, you have information from us as a guide. So one of the ways that you are also going to be communicating with us, and let's talk a little bit about this. We've got 5 specific teams that are working through our division, and what their responsibility is to work directly with our delegates and partners. What you see in front of you is the list of supervisors and the team members. Let's go to Denise here on the left on the screen. That's Team A. They have a list of agencies that have identified that are under them. So that list are the agencies that they're specifically working with and on behalf of. When we say speak directly to the supervisor in your team, if you look across for Team A, Denise Jordan, we got Team B, Kelly Pleasance. Right now we do have a vacancy, I will say that, and we're seeking to hire that position. But Elaine Millsap-Parker right now is taking care of Team C, Team D, Jacinta Passamet, and then Team E, Nicole Randolph. I just want to point that out so that you can look, and I'm not asking you to do this at this moment because your teams have communicated with you, but know that we have these segregated by team, groups of agency on their caseload for just a terminology to use to reference this. But again, they are all working on your behalf and are able to communicate with you. And that's what this is all about. One of the other things I want you to understand when we go down to the bottom is we've got hearing and vision teams. They've already been out in community and are setting up meetings with you to come out. Team A specifically, and I'm not going to go through all the names, but I want you to go down to the bottom as we're pulling across and showing you that there are individuals that are specifically working with your agencies and making sure that we can get the hearing and vision screenings done for the children in your organization. So again, these are set up specifically for you. I want to make sure that you have an engagement of communication with Children's Services Division. And here's one of your key points, individuals for delegate agencies under them. Denise Jordan as the supervisor, again, just going back to Team A. And then if you go all the way down, there's for hearing and vision, you've got 2 individuals that are there, Amanda and Kenya. So there's some specific people working with you and on behalf of you. So again, when we're talking about phone calls, we are going to be on the phone. Another way that we communicate with you. To that point, we want to make sure that we have correct phone numbers. So we are going to be making sure that our contact information for all of our agencies are correct. There are times that we're going to be asking you, for example, information on key people on various topics. Who's the person who we're going to communicate with on enrollment? That's just an example. We want to make sure that we have their contact information correctly. So if we have an immediate question, they have a contact person they can go to so that they can get their questions answered. Also, when they're concerned, how do we get to you? We are going to do site visits. I will tell you, site visits will be done. They will be both announced and unannounced. So yes, we will be doing site visits. Right now, we're getting in touch with our new agencies and trying to set up site visits so that we can come out and meet you. We want to meet at your agency so we can get to know you, get to know your sites. You get a chance to tell us everything you feel you need to tell us about your organizations. And so I know those are happening right now. But again, who's the audience for phone calls and site visits? Again, at the agency level, we want to make sure that we have key personnel that we can reach out to. Children's Services Division staff, of course, if you're trying to reach us, just went over a list with you, those are individuals you're going to reach out to. But at any given point, there's parents, board representation, our community delegates have representation on our parent policy committee at the city level. There's internal and external communications, and of course, talking to all of our external stakeholders. Again, phone calls, site visits. Again, every ability you have is what we're trying to talk about and how to engage in communication with us and how we engage in communication with you. So again, to the point of webinars, and I talked about this earlier and how they will go up on YouTube. We have, for example, 3 specific ones that's coming up right now on webinars. And one of the things that I want you to know, for example, the content area on transportation, pedestrian and safety standards. We want to make sure that you get individuals registered for that. It's going to happen January 13th. And these webinars are about an hour, hour and a half, and in some cases they may run a little bit longer. You know, in some of it there's going to be questions and answers. And when we give you opportunities to ask your questions and give you some responses as we go through these different webinars. So your attendees for these webinars are individuals who are specifically responsible for these content-specific topics. Again, transportation, pedestrian safety standards. Who should be on that webinar? Your agencies need to have individuals there. You need to understand this is a federal standard where if children are boarding a bus or a vehicle, what are the governing pieces that you have to be thinking about to ensure safety for all children? It's going to be covered on that content-specific training. Another one that we're going to do is on program governance standards and program expectations. When that webinar happens, again, from 1 to 3 on the 13th, we want people who are responsible for governance, who's responsible for making sure that your parent policy committee is actively engaged, that your board and leadership are actively involved and engaged in programmatic decisions, setting goals, talking about programmatic expectations. Again, there will be opportunities for questions and answers, but we want to make sure that the right people are registered. That's why we're communicating this today. What we're wanting you to do at your agency is think about who should be at that particular governance standard program expectation training that's going to be on Monday. Again, now we've got a third one coming up on the 15th, Health and Family and Community Partnership Agreement. Who is your agency? Who's responsible? You, family support staff, others. Who will you have registered for this webinar? January 15th from 2 to 4. Again, there will be opportunities for Q&A. If you've got some specific questions, we want the right people to be on there, again, so that they will be thinking through it through the vein of this is the work that I'm responsible for. They may hear something, need clarification. There'll be staff in the room who can guide and assist with some of that. And as I said earlier, the webinars that I just talked about are in the CSD update. Those registration links are there for you so that you can get your staff registered for these 3 webinars. That CSD update has gone out. So if you have not looked at your most recent CSD update, guess what? Here's an opportunity for you now to go ahead and do that. You can look and see, think about who, get them registered for the webinars that's coming up next week. So again, why are we talking about communication? Communication is key to how we operate our businesses. We're a people industry, that's what we do. We need to be able to communicate, but we also have to have systems that are already developed for effective communication within our organizations. How are we communicating across, up, down, all of those different ways? How are we sending out communication? What vehicles are we using? What documents are we creating? Who's the recipient of those? And did we create it in such a way that the recipient who's receiving it can actually use that documentation? What do I mean by that? When you're thinking about the information that's going out to your leadership team, you might write it one way. But if this is a document that you're specifically writing for your parents, you've got to think about how to write it for them so that they can see themselves in it and see how they can use that information. So again, we want you to think about your communication system, all of your tools. What's your effective communication strategy? It must be a system that ensures your information is received, that it flows from the top of your organization all the way down to the bottom and across. For example, if you have delegates and you have partners, if you're a delegate with partners, your communication system can't stop with the internal piece at your directly operated site. You've got to think about how do you stretch yourself all the way across to all of your partners. If you're a partner of a delegate, what communication are you sending up to your delegate? And then what information are they expecting to get from you, and what do you expect from them? It's effective when everybody is on the same place, thinking about it the same way, and creating tools that communicate in such a way that I can understand what you're asking of me. And that's what I'm asking everyone to do, is think about your communication system just as we are here at DFSS. And if you're not receiving communication from us, we gave you a minute ago a document that said who your supervisors of your teams are. I'm going to ask that you communicate with them right away if you feel that there's anybody at your agency who's not getting the communication from us that you want. This is another way of ensuring that people across the board at your organizations are in the communication loop between DFSS and your organization. So again, an effective system, you ensure that it's going out, it's going up, it's going across, and for us today, that it's going out into our broader audience to explain to you what our expectations are, and then setting some balance out there on what it is you can expect from us. And again, talking about all the methods that we will communicate with you. And I know I've covered a lot, talking about it from emails to phone calls to webinars to meetings and trainings. But what I wanted to do is be very clear with you that as you go through 2020, there's going to be a lot of communication coming out from us, and a lot of ways that we will be touching you to give you information and update you on what's going on with the Children's Services Division, from our funders, from you and our community. Again, this is about keeping everybody up to date. So again, I've already talked about ways that you can reach out, but as we go through this, I just want to make sure that you understand City of Chicago. Like I said, you can go onto our website. Here's a link for that. We also want you to know that we're on Facebook. You know, there's updates on different things that are happening in Children's Services Division that goes up on Facebook. We also, again, as a reminder, the YouTube channel, our webinars are posted there, and webinars that we've done previously are still there. You can still tap onto those webinars and get some information from previous webinars on all kinds of trainings and topics that we've already covered. But the three, for example, that I've just outlined, and also this webinar, will be up on the YouTube channel. And so again, at Chi-Fam Support, there's another way for you to communicate with us, and we do through Instagram, Twitter. Just know that we're out there communicating with you through every portal that we can. Again, this is just the start. This is not the end. There will be a lot more ways that we will all communicate with you. And again, this is not my last webinar with you. I've got a variety of topics that I will be capturing as well. One of the things I want you to do is keep up to date with our CSD update so that you know in advance what to expect and make sure that you're signing on. Right now, I'm going to say thank you, and then I'm going to go ahead and sign off. So have a great day.